Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott, and once again today joined by my good friend and wonderful co-host, Zach Ingo-Finch. How you doing, Zach?
Yeah, all right. As much as you can be with the downfall of the entirety of civilization. Football club that I love sucks. Most video games that come out now are pretty trash. I'm just miserable, mate.
You've obviously never played Balatro. That is
I jest. I'm all right. It's just a bit weird time to be a Saints fan, isn't it? I can't wait to talk about some of the absolute insane things that are already coming out of both our fan base and outside our fan base now that we are managerless again.
Yeah,
for what feels like the 100th time in the last couple of years.
Well, that's it, mate. We spent some time yesterday reflecting on why we brought Juric in and what that meant, but now it's time to think a little bit about what's next, right? We know we've got Rusk and Lallana till the end of the season. Fine, good.
Can I make a point about that?
Yeah,
good. Right. I know that some people were talking about bringing him in already. Like bringing in a new manager already. One, I don't think that they've got the list sorted yet. I think they've probably been putting a list together for a while now. At least they're more prepared this time round. Like they've made the decision, they've pulled the trigger. It must have been after discussions have had. Don't tarnish our new manager with like whoever it is with what's happened this season. Just there's no need.
100%, mate.
Bring him in the day after all of the contracts for people end. How about that? So that way he gets to sort it.
Look, clean slate. Look. I've talked about it on the show. Clean slate, hard reset, fresh start. We go again. Nevertheless, we can speculate, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. That's fine.
So let's think about it, right? So I guess. Look, I've got a list in front of me, and I know that you've got a couple of names that aren't on this list, which are equally as funny. Let's start with the most likely, which is going to take the most time, and work our way through some of the absurdity. Okay, so elephant in the room seems to be pretty locked on, although we've got contrasting opinions on how much we think that is. Danny Roel seems to be, he's definitely the bookies' favourite, odds on to be the next Saints manager.
There was a lot of talk and a lot of looking into him before Spurs took charge. And I don't know whether or not him now being in charge and him, as you said yesterday, taking the responsibility, wants to gamble. And like you said, he likes him, he follows him, he sees him as a good coach.
They've worked together before.
Yeah, so those are all things that put that as a benefit in the box of potentially him coming to work with us. Sheffield Wednesday's whole situation is awful, terrible, and upsetting if you're a Wednesday fan, to be perfectly honest, which could potentially work out in our favour, right? We probably won't be having to do what we did with Russell Martin in Swansea, which, all of that information kind of got leaked to the public, and Russell Martin wasn't happy about talking about it, which is understandable if you're in a legal dispute with somebody. So, there is a cost benefit to that as well. It is whether or not it will fit what we want to going forward and how we're going to establish ourselves as a team. I don't think it would be a bad appointment. All I'm trying to say is that the way that people are talking about it is that it's completely locked in and locked on, right? And this is how people were talking about some of the other characters. And then out of nowhere, we ended up getting Ivan Juric.
Yeah. Also, right, for me, I rate Danny Roel, and I know he's got history with the club, and I'm sure he would do a fantastic job for us, and will if that is the case. But it's another unproven manager at that Premier League level, right? It's another risk and gamble. And sure, it's sort of proven to some degree to be able to do a lot with not a lot in the Championship. And that might be all well and good for next season, but it really puts us in a really precariously similar position to this season if we go up, right? So,
yes, it's one of those things, but the flip side of that, to play devil's advocate, so I genuinely don't know what side of the fence I land on at this point, is that you end up with just the merry-go-round of managers, right? Like, you're already going to start going through some of the people that we've been linked with, and it's like, really? We're now just stuff it, just make it Big Sam at this point. So as much as it's unproven, how do you get to yourself? Who
I don't
are
think-
we getting
I
that's
don't-
proven?
You said that as a joke. I don't think I'd hate that.
Oh, that's harrowing. My point is like who do we get that's proven?
Yeah, I
Who wants to
don't have
come-
the answer to that question.
I think that's what, but that is one of the questions that they're going to have to be asking, and
Yeah.
I don't think they have the answers to that question. Someone that's proven that someone, unless they're going to do what they do, what Southampton fans love, which is just returning to the past. Are we gonna dig out? So we're gonna somehow get Pochettino from the US men's team? We're not. He's got a World Cup to do first. Are we gonna?
Stacking up to these days?
But Harry Redknapp's probably retired still. That was a lovely time.
Right, mate. I don't even think the Saints fans who love to live in the past have any interest in that reuniting, mate.
Oh, it's upsetting enough that Rupert Lowe made a resurgence. But regardless of what your political opinions are, it's not up to me to judge. But it's just it's just as a Saints fan, it's a horrible reminder of a time where we went through a horrible time. But yeah, like it's weird, isn't it? It's very, very strange, and it's difficult because it's like you want to get somebody that's fresh, will bring good ideas, will revitalise the team, and that's why some of the names on the list, and you being like, yeah, Big Sam, I'm like, does that say panicked appointment more? Like, it must be hard to be Sam Allardyce now, right? You come into a team and everyone's there like, oh no, you're here to try and save us from relegation. We've been relegated. That should be our ambition, mate.
I think that does Sam Allardyce. I think that undersells his ability, right? You have to remember that he is a manager who is at the forefront of the change in football, right? Like, he is one of the first managers that brought in his own backroom staff to do these sort of analytics and work through on the sessions. And,
somehow it's just going to end up hoofing it to Paul Onuachu again, isn't it?
But look, you know as much as I do that footballing philosophies are not my cup of tea, and so maybe Big Sam is that refreshing change to save football that we all need. Look, I'm not saying that I actually want Big Sam to be our next manager. I'm just saying if it happened, I probably wouldn't be upset.
I just want everyone to picture this, right? Spores goes in, folders, sits down at the boardroom, slams it down, sits there, opens all these up. Goes back in his chair like this, clicks his hand, looks directly at Dragon Solak and goes, Big Sam. The whole room erupts in applause. The season's been saved. We're going to get promoted again. Mate, be real.
Honestly, what we're going to do after the break is go through the rest of the list from Paddy Power that I've got in front of me. And I want you to tell me where you think on this list Big Sam would fit in, because I think it's lower than some of the answers on this list, honestly.
For sure, mate, for sure.
Right. Let's take a break and take a message from our partners at Bioniq.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN 2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now. Your body.
Okay, and we are back. So I am going to carry on down the list in odds order, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to absolutely butcher some pronunciations of names here, and I am sorry, but it's just not my strong suit. So Liam, is it Rosenia? Is that a good effort? Is that a bad effort?
Tried your best, mate. It's the manager of Strasbourg.
Strasbourg. I mean, a team that also I'm going to struggle to pronounce. Not at the moment.
A team that also have European football. So next season, by the looks of it. So I don't really understand why you'd want to leave to go to the Championship, but also
best league in the world, isn't it, mate? That's all it is.
better than French League One. To be fair, what you doing? You're fighting to come second to PSG every year.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
might be a controversial opinion.
It doesn't seem like a likely one to me. It's interesting that the odds are I want to say as low, but 9-1 compared to 4-7 on. I think it's pretty clear where Paddy Power sees the direction.
I think it's an interesting one, but again, like it's one of those things that you could have somebody that comes into the room when they do these interviews that puts down a plan in front of both Spurs and the others, and that impresses them enough to give them the job. At the moment, everyone is just assuming role, but I could see that being, I think some people, it's a step towards probably Premier League management, or it's a step towards something more exciting. It's a project. It's a way to entirely shape your own shape. Is the Championship more prolific than the French League One? What do you reckon? Genuine question.
I think that the promise land of the Premier League awaits, right? That's the selling point of being a good manager in the Championship. If you get a good season and a win in the Championship, which is very doable with a team that's coming down, in theory, then it's the fastest route, right, to a Premier League manager.
Yeah,
and that is prolific, right? That is arguably the target for most, at least European managers, I would say, to come and manage at that level. So, yeah, maybe it would be an interesting one. Speaking of interesting, maybe in a different context, Frank Lampard.
Sure. I've seen a couple of people throw his name around already. Again, like we're recording this probably about. We recorded 2 yesterday's and today's back to back, mainly due to time constraints because we're human beings, but also because they're natural points that have flowed into one another. And me and Greg know that we're going to end up having a 50 to 60-minute conversation regardless. May as well record it. But one of the things, but it is insane how quick it's gone from him being fired to the names that we've been linked with that no one would have linked us with. And Frank Lampard is really one of those, right? Out of nowhere, heading up a promotion charge for Coventry City. Yeah, he's made Coventry play well. Yeah, he did all right at Derby. Did everyone just forget when he was in charge of Chelsea twice and also Everton? Why can we? I already have my opinions on like that golden generation of players becoming managers and how many of them are not really succeeding at being managers. Depends on your definition of success. If it's being paid £500 million a year in the Saudi league, then that's one way. But I'm very, very skeptical that Frank Lampard could be leading the charge.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's not an appointment that I see making any sense. Yeah, no, not for me.
It's just like, why? What have we?
Back in the context of the start of the episode, mate, more or less positive and more or less likely than Big Sam.
Oh no, you're right. You're right. Oh, that's a hard one.
Yeah. This is joint second favourite, mate. So I'm just saying. Okay, next on the list, Steve Cooper.
Well, again, merry-go-round, innit? The management merry-go-round comes into Leicester, don't want him at Leicester, get rid of it at Leicester. After being at Forest, don't want him at Forest, get rid of him at Forest. Give him to Southampton. Southampton, have him for a little bit, then we'll get rid of him. I can remember our counterpart on the Leicester show was not a big fan of him. They needed to. Forest ended up moving away from him, which turned out to be the right decision. Forest now in like Champions League spots. Do we want him for a rebuild? No, not really. Would I prefer him over Frank Lampard? Probably. Yeah. Would I prefer Frank Lampard over Sam Allardyce? Maybe. They're probably on the same level for me. Like I'd rather neither of them.
It's making some upsetting reading, isn't it? Right? Because
but this is the reality of it, which is why
it puts the point of our unproven and doubts about Danny Roel into context of actually looking at the rest of this list. Definitely the lesser of the evils. Someone I cannot claim to know a huge amount next on the list. Kasper Hjulmand.
So he was the guy that was supposed
Danish manager, right?
Yeah, so he was supposedly going to come in when Jurich came in. So I think he must be in their little book of people supposedly slightly more defensively minded. We had a brief discussion with him about a month or two ago. Not that a month or two ago, sorry, beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Whenever Russell Martin was fired, he was one of the potential replacements at that point. And I think I probably would have been more excited for that than Jurich, if I'm totally honest. However, I don't see them again. Like, I think that he has been linked to the bookies because he was linked to us previously. I do not think that Spurs has looked at their appointments. And it's like with your kid brings you a bad drawing, Greg, and you go, "Oh, thanks, buddy," and then you put it up on the fridge. I have a feeling that a lot of the appointments that that Sports Republic have taken to Spurs has gone, "Yeah, that he sounds like a really good manager. We'll put his name right up on the fridge," and they're probably not going to hire them. At least that's what I'd hope. Or otherwise, my faith will rapidly dwindle in our current director of football / global footballing, or whatever you want to call it nowadays.
He did an alright job with the Danish national team, right? That was his last managerial job. So
I'm always skeptical with national team managers, though, coming back into, because it's a completely different ball game, realistically, isn't it?
Maybe we'll have an opportunity to touch on that slightly further down the list. But before we get to those depths, a message from our partners at Zencastr. Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner, with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to check out your story, check out the link in the show description and learn more about Zencastr. Okay, and we're back. So next on the list, and to put this into context, we're down as far as 14-1. So, not that unlikely, but also not that likely. Sean Dyche. No? You don't think that Dyche is missold as a one-trick pony, as a manager that could be more tactically diverse and robust?
I just don't. It's difficult, right? Do you remember when we got rid of Puel, despite the fact we came like 8th or whatever?
Yeah.
But does everyone remember why we got rid of Puel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think Dyche ball would be as bad as that. I think I'd rather Dyche over Lampard, but not over Big Sam. So that's where I'm putting him on that scale.
I don't know. I feel like some of these, where I feel like I'll probably get slated for that. Like, you'd be lucky to have Sean Dyche. Yeah, we probably would.
Yeah.
I don't know. It depends what our ambitions are going forward, right?
Here's a question, because we were linked with Sean Dyche in January, when we bought Jurich in. If we had bought Dyche in instead of Jurich, do you think that we'd have had a glimmer of hope and a chance of staying up?
I don't think we'd have stayed up. I think that we would have been well past the points barrier at this point. I think probably would have drawn out draws and hoofball and whatever. And I think defensively we would have been hopefully more sound than we have been, where we've consistently left ourselves exposed and made silly mistakes. But it depends. Are the players going to stop making dumb mistakes under a different manager? Probably not. It really depends where their mentality's at. But I think that could have been the case. But imagine if we'd stayed up, though, then it would just be then like kicking that can down the road for as long as possible. And I don't know how much of a ambitious appointment it is, but also it depends what we want to do next year. Is the goal to do what we did last time and go down and come straight back up? That's a question we've not actually asked ourselves. Is that their ambition? Is it to immediately return to the Premier League? And if the short thing is immediately to return to the Premier League, I feel like playing sort of a really defensive-minded football. Don't get me wrong, you need a really good defence in the Championship, but also not having sort of the obliteration power of some of the other clubs that have come down will become like a mid-table Championship club.
Yeah,
but that is an interesting point.
To touch on that, I think we need to come up immediately, as horrible as it is, because we have come down after going back up. I think we only get 2 years of the parachute payments, and so gambling it all, our remaining advantage on a season after next I don't think that's a smart move. So,
but as you also pointed out, is that harsh of Sean Dyche? Probably, which again is leaving us with not really a lot of managers to put a punt on that we actually trust. But I think it's because all of the managers that are available that we're tapping up are either all free transfers or alternatively, in my opinion, like we're not going to get any really, really good managers that we want So it's difficult for us to try and make the best out of a bad situation, which is why a lot of us are kind of all in on Danny Roel, because a lot of this list, you're not like, yeah, I'll take him in a heartbeat. And it's like,
All right,
actually...
we should fly through the rest of the list, though.
Perfect.
Okay. Simon Rusk, obviously going to be caretaker manager for the rest of the season. He didn't want the job permanently when he took it over in January, and I don't think 7 games in charge of the worst team in Premier League history is going to change his mind, do you?
No, probably not. I think if you like being in development football, that's what you like to be, right?
Yeah, happy days. Moving swiftly on, Gary O'Neill, 16-1.
Sure.
I think he'd be all right. I think I'd be happy with that as an appointment. But
It depends
one of these ones where it's like the musical merry-go-round.
It's one of those musical merry-go-rounds, and it's again, like, do you remember? I can't remember who was talking about it, but we talked about it one time where we were still trying to define our identity, right? Like, we're going to have this Italian heavy metal Jurich football, and then under Russell Martin, we were going to be a young English squad with a young English coach, and it's like, I just have a feeling that they are going to, with Spore's background, try and do a Red Bull-esque something. And I just think a lot of the people that are picked in this list aren't suited to that style of what he wants, which is why I think it's going to end up as Roel. And I think the rest of your list I'm looking forward to listen to, because in my head I'm just like, nah. So yeah, I wouldn't be as upset with it, but also...
Okay, well,
Wolves didn't exactly have the
still
season
in the
of
sort of
lifetime,
16-1 range, David Wagner. Okay, and we are back. I think we had some technical difficulties. Not entirely sure where we left off, but I think next on the list at 16-1 is David Wagner.
Sure. Did the right at Huddersfield, didn't he?
Yeah.
Something a bit different.
Yeah.
Someone
also
slightly...
German like Spores, I guess, is like a tenuous link there. I don't know.
So, as I said, I don't know where we were cut off, but I was just going on a rant about how, I feel like he's going to try and implement some sort of Red Bull style football to this area, and I think that a lot of the managers that we've got, I don't think they're going to want a rinsed, recycled manager.
Yeah.
I think they're going to want somebody fresh, someone new, and that's probably why Roel is the front runner. But then potentially Liam from Strasbourg might do a good job as well. Did you also see Will Still? Is he on your list?
He's not on my list. See the one who didn't have his badges for a long time.
Yes,
and got the job because he was good at Football Manager.
Yeah, didn't lose a job, didn't lose a game for ages in France, and yes, I think that was a season or two ago now. But it was a feel good story. But yeah, he's also been on the list linked as well.
I'll take it. I mean, at this point, I'm willing to accept anyone and give them the chance. Right? It can't be worse than this season. So. Or maybe it can.
I don't know. There's a couple of your list people made. Sean Dyche, Sam Allardyce, Gary O'Neill. It's just sort of like they are your merry-go-round roundabout managers. I would much rather, I guess, something different. Just as long as whatever it is doesn't solidify us into a stubborn style of football that only the 11 players that we consistently pick can play. And I just raise their fitness levels, I think, is the other thing I want.
100%.
Is that bad to say out loud? But
no, we've been moaning about it all season, mate.
Good. Okay, perfect.
Michael Carrick next on the list. Currently at Middlesbrough.
He's done okay at Middlesbrough, but also, again, like, not blown away. He's not managed to make the playoffs with them. It's not like they were going to go... I don't know, weren't they quite low down and then he helped them out quite a bit?
I would be lying if I told you that I knew.
Yeah. There we go. I don't know how I'd feel. Slightly indifferent, but it's somebody that I'm not really too... I would have to see more to know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Next on the list, getting towards some of the outsiders here. Julian's 25-1. Julian Stefan, the old Rennes manager.
Sure. Yeah. Fine. Okay. Probably not going to happen, so I'm not really that bothered. Next.
Yeah. But also on the outside of the 25-1 list, Pep Linders, who was in charge of Salzburg. So talking of the Red Bull model, maybe.
Maybe. You never know. Strange things have happened. But again, like, it really...
He was the assistant at Liverpool under Klopp for a bit, so has like Premier League and Red Bull experience. So maybe that's not as out there as you'd sort of think, but would be a bit left field, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's hard.
And then we get to maybe the two most ridiculous names on the list. apart from the one which I know that before the show you mentioned, which I'd love to finish on. But first, at 40-1 as rank outsider, Lee Castley. And
Sure.
maybe my favourite entry on the list, one that physically made me laugh out loud the first time I read it, is at 40-1 to be the next permanent Southampton manager, Russell Martin.
It's funny. My friend James Peach texted me just before this started, and he literally said to me, "Where was it?" Question: if the board had sacked the guy, replaced Martin for not turning it around, is there an argument to bring Martin back and let him do the 2 to 3 year rebuild in the Championship that he initially started on? My response not a minute later was no. To which I got a reacting laughing face. I said,
it would be right. We've spent most of this episode and some of the last episode, right, talking about how it's Sport's chance to take responsibility and lay the game in his image and set his path on it to to pick the manager that got fired before he came in would be very funny but deeply upsetting.
I said, my response to my friend was he was too stubborn for his own good. Poor recruitment due to our DOF being poached in the Championship / his desire to play a specific type of football is why we are where we are. Yeah, Jurich took the poison chalice and probably thought it was easier said than done. But like, that's my TLDR. Is I'm like, that would be insane behaviour, and like we're already being seen as a joke club and tin pot. We're already laughing. I think that would really push people over the edge.
Yeah.
Or there will be the group that still think that it was a dumb decision to fire him, being like, we know he can get us up in the Championship. And I will point out again, as much as it was lovely to come up through the playoffs, we came up through the playoffs. We were fourth. We did not win the Championship. We could have won the Championship because we did not sort out our defence. Bringing him back will cause the same problems. It's not going to resolve them.
100%. And then to finish off, Zach, from your list of names, was it Ange Postecoglou?
yeah, somebody being like, if Big Ange goes, we should come in for him. And I'm like, mate, like, as much as I think Ange Postecoglou hates Spurs more than most people that hate Spurs, and you can tell that at the moment just due to his interviews, what on earth would possess a man who has been like running, arguably one of the more successful English teams to go, do you know what I fancy? Championship Southampton. Like, to be fair, I'd love every single one of our interviews to start with, well, now listen, mate, but it's just not going to happen. Like, it's just not. You don't move from clubs like that to that, right? You don't. Arguably, maybe you could say, completely out of left field are things like Mourinho, where he was talking about wanting to manage a low league English club at one point, and he also managed Tottenham. But let's face it.
Would I take that? Would I be happy with that? I don't know how I feel about that.
I look forward to them. I think as well, they're not just going to pick a manager now. I wouldn't be surprised if they wait. If they're waiting to the end of the season, here's how I would do it using logic, data, and being smart. You wait until the end of the season, right? You see how Russ gets on. You see what points we land on. You see which players are now playing without a manager that do well. You see which players are still planning to be here. You then look at the players that we've got going into a championship season. You look at where they can play. You look at what available budget you have to fill the gaps that you need to fill in, and you see which managers are willing to come in and deal with that. Because the problem is if we're going to go out and get a new manager tomorrow and we bring them in and they start to put all the assessments together, we've got about 50% of our squad, if not more, leaving in the summer. It doesn't matter who comes in now. I don't know if there's any manager that's going to come in and speak to any of these players and convince them to stay. When you've been relegated, promoted and relegated again.
Also, I'm not convinced that there's many of the players that we want him to, the new manager, to have that conversation with, right? We talked about that.
Because also what happens if he sweet talks them into saying, yeah, I'm going to play amazing, Gaffer, and then goes out and doesn't do anything for 90 minutes, which has unfortunately been quite a large percent of our squad. Whether it's them putting in 100% effort but being bad, because again, like as far as Jack Stevens is concerned, I don't want to call no one a liar. He said they've all put in 100%. So if they are putting 100%, then it just means they're not that great. I don't want them to be convinced and curtailed by that situation. And if Spurs is taking responsibility for it all, should go from there. But yeah, that's my realistic take. But I wouldn't be surprised if they do it. If he is data and analytics focused, they look at a manager that has the most wins, that has the best performing in fitness, that can dealing with these sort of percent, and then go from there.
If we're talking about statistics, mate, we're going to end up back with Nathan Jones. He was statistically the best manager in Europe. Don't forget.
Get out.
Well, anywho. Only time will tell.
Change that to analytics from statistics. Statistics mean nothing, but analysing stuff does.
That is just about all we've got time for today, though. The summer is going to be vastly interesting one way or another. And somehow we've got 7 games to sit through before then.
Goodness gracious me, that's going to be fun, isn't it?
Yes, we will be back tomorrow as we turn our heads towards our next game, meaningful Premier League game, as we have Aston Villa at home at the weekend, let's not forget. Until then, let us know, who do you want to see as the next permanent Saints manager? We are on all of the socials, on Twitter, Blue Sky, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all of it, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere. We're probably on it. Give us a search. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you then.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.